Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. It's I'm gratified at what a good turnout. There's not a lot that I can add to this. When two directors of a DOT, chief engineer, district engineers, community members, mayors, directors of operations get together and they say, this is bringing value to our city, especially people that are very mindful about spending monies. It's something that people like us who are have devoted much of our lives to infrastructure, pay attention to. I can speak to, and what I will speak to now is what CDR does, Creative Design Resolutions, because we are the premier company that incorporates aesthetics into infrastructure. We've worked for a quarter of all the DOTs in the country, and we've done this for nearly 25 years. I'm sure there are others that do it, so I'm going to talk generically, but I'll speak to it in how we do our business, because I think this might be very informative. This is not aesthetics that just are going to, as you've heard said, put lipstick on a pig. These are things that are actually incorporated into the architecture, into the programming, into the engineering of your projects, defined by what the client wants, the stakeholders, and their constituents. And what we do to do that is we do this. We have community meetings, and we show past work like we're doing now, and engage a conversation. How do you feel about yourself? And then in the end, when we come back, we will provide aesthetic suggestions. And then, of course, in the end, we do 3D models. You'll see some movies and so on and so forth as a way of visualizing what this is going to look like in the future, and options derived from you all, not just by a design firm. So these aesthetics specifically are built to be from your community. They are contextually of this place. If you moved it to somewhere else, it wouldn't fit anymore. It tells a story. What we say at CDR is that we're storytellers of the clients we work for. So the most successful urban design projects through a collaboration of communities in the development and design process. We track the engineers of records or in-house engineering. We track that with our aesthetics. So each project is site-specific, and it will tell the story of your community. By the architecture all around, right? The history, your commerce, your vision, your values, the natural environment, your aspirations for the future, all of that. Why not incorporate that into your structures? Why not? It's just concrete. And you're going to have to form it anyway. So first thing we'll talk about is bridges. You know, Casey mentioned this detail here, this medallion on the bridge, on the Spewey Bridge. First of all, just to keep in mind, this 18-foot diameter MSE panel, that relief that you see, that's a foreground, middle ground, background. The depth of relief there is 1.5 inches. For all of you who think that this is going to be a very expensive proposition, all this stuff you're seeing, you're mistaken. But I didn't show you the slide for that. I showed you the slide for those flutes. You see those flutes that were created to make these gigantic triangles to look like topography that you might see on the plains of Oklahoma, like this. But remember now, we are designing these things to be repurposed, to be modular. Every design you see here, every design we make is a modular design, meaning it doesn't have to just be used this one time, this one way, and repeated and repeated and repeated. In fact, it can be reconfigured, reoriented, combined with other designs to create the story of your state. So you look at this design, and they didn't have a lot of money. They had about 12 single-span bridges and tens of thousands of retaining walls. So we just took it and we reconfigured those same liners that they own. This is the key as you're looking at this. Director Ridley and I came up with this idea. Think about normal means and methods and business practices of your contractors. They will buy the cheapest form liner they can to do that fractured fin on the wall. You get 2 or 3 pours out of it. They'll throw it away, move down, get another liner, et cetera, down the line. All that adds up. Versus we specify urethane liners. And urethane liners, you can get 50 to 100 usages out of it. So a little more investment up front, but it exceeds the first project. They warehouse it. They account for it. They qualify it and quantify it. They check it in and out like library books. Makes the next project thousands of dollars cheaper, makes the next project thousands of dollars cheaper, and if the contractor doesn't take good care of it, they have to replace it. We changed the way, slightly, the way the state contracts for these projects. Because who owns these things in this state? Not the contractor. You do, because you paid for it, you see? So this is now I'm going to move outside of Colorado, just to give you a quick overview of some other work. Another bridge before a university, the other one you saw, NOU, this is Virginia Tech. They have Hokie stone, you know, just as their favorite little stone they use. So this was a quick little computer model. And this is the bridge being built right now. And you can see the spandrel being installed. I mean, really, anything is possible. Concrete is the cheapest, most plastic material you can use that has the longevity that it does. There's so much more that we can do with it. Caltrans, we did this wonderful project for Caltrans in Stockton, California. They don't like staining their bridges because it gets tagged. We did this bridge a number of years ago. It has never gotten tagged. In fact, I'd say 99% of the bridges and highways we've ever made has never been tagged. And one reason is this, because we get the community involved and they take ownership and they have something to say about what it looks like and they like it. So here is Stockton, California, the breadbasket of this country. So it's all about the delta, it's all about the flora and fauna, it's all about the water going through it and the natural environment. So you see that in the wing walls. You see how we, you have trout, you have great blue herons. You'll see this precast, post-stress concrete beam that looks like the delta as seen from a plane. And then something like this, which I'm sure you have never seen. Slope walls are a wonderful, large bit of architecture that is unused. We stamp them, we sometimes stain them, but in this case, we wanted to make a view of what the delta looks like from 100 miles up. And so we just use what you're looking at here. Each one of these slope walls are 60 feet high and hundreds of feet long, using metal trowels, raked finishes, timing, all those different effects. Each one of these was done in one day. It just followed your contractor. Nothing that you will see here delays a project or creates a cost overrun. We've been doing this for nearly 25 years. We have never once been late, and we have never once been over budget. We track you. This was a great Big Rock project you're probably familiar with outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. They commissioned us to design it. They had just piers after piers after piers. So we created a modular design that could grow and shrink, that could be organized by color. So this flyover Ramsey, bent of piers or a collection of piers that may have one color in it. This one has a slightly different color. Of course, that's a stylized acorn from the loblolly pine, the state tree, in case you didn't notice that. And of course, on their parapet, see how elegant that is, timeless in its design. And it's just architecture. And there's the state silhouette on their parapet. I'm going to go back to that project in a moment. So here's an interesting bridge, and this is something very important, talking about community. This is for the city of Dayton, Ohio. This city is divided by the Great Miami River. And when I say divided, I don't mean just physically divided. I mean divided economically, divided racially, divided in all sorts of ways. So when they brought us in to have this community meeting, they wanted us to somehow glean from the audience how they see themselves, what do they want this new bridge to speak about. Now, of course, I go there, we do our research, and I say, well, Dayton, Ohio, that's where the Wright brothers created their plane, the Wright B Flyer for World War I. other aspects of Dayton that's very important. I had some ideas, but I didn't want to go in with any prejudice. I walk in. The entire audience was African American on the west side, and I'm standing in front. I say, okay, please tell me tell me about this bridge. Tell me about your city. What do you want? And they said, do you realize that this bridge we close down once a year in solidarity to the Selma March Martin Luther King had? This road is called Martin Luther King Bridge. This bridge is called the Peace Bridge. Oh, did I not mention that on the west side, the opposite side of downtown, the neighborhood, the African American neighborhood, that's where the Wright brothers had their bike shop. That's where the airplane was invented. You start seeing how important that side of the city is. And the building stock looks like, well, Georgetown, looks like Virginia. I mean, old, beautiful architecture. How do you tell that story? How do you involve all these people? Downtown, all nationalities, all histories, how do you do that? Well, because there are locations to do that. If you have a bridge, this has a light rail up on top. You have bike riders going across. How do you get from there down to the hike bike path down at the bottom? How do you go from the hike bike path up on very top? And what do you want that experience to be like? Do you just want them moving from point A to point B? Or how about telling the story of why you're there, of why this is there, why these people are there? I mean, this is an opportunity to plant seeds. Hold on, let me turn this down. Okay, all right. This is another project. When we have a chance to actually, the previous project you saw, we were able to design the architecture as well. When the engineers allow us to come in early, then we can actually affect the architecture, and that's where it gets really inexpensive. What's the difference between a pier bent with round column piers, square column piers, hammerhead piers, or a pier wall? Nothing. They all carry the load. They all cost about the same. It's the architecture. Does it support the theme? Toya Bridge was built over a wash with a few neighborhoods in it, and our challenge was, Stephen, we want this to be a signature bridge, but we want it to be invisible. We don't want it to be lit up. We want to see the stars at night, but we want it to speak to where we are. We're in a wash that divides the city when it rains. It's Toya Bridge, which means the cactus. How can you make this bridge noticeable, signature, but invisible? We recommended you take the sand from the wash and you use it in your concrete mix. You take the color of the sand of the wash and you use it for stain. You take the parapet and you undulate it like it would be water. You make the railing undulate like it would be water. And you take the inside of the parapet and you put reliefs of choyas. Why not? I mean, you have to cast your concrete against something. In every square yard of concrete, one of the aggregate line items, the cost of making a square yard of concrete is a form liner. Aggregate, water, cement, labor, forms, form liner. It's already in your budget. It's how you use that money and how it can serve you later. So look at the opportunities. Anything is possible. And that's just bridges, retaining walls. Imagine having a design like this. Each one of those squares, just so you understand scale, each one of those squares are 12.5 feet square, 25 feet high. This design is 4 miles long, and it doesn't repeat. And there's only 24 liners. But there are 24 liners that can do this, 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 this. So many combinations, permutations, unlimited. Reusable over and over again. Look at this design, this design, this design. These are all from the same form liners, and that's what you're looking at. So this is the detail. These are all dentals. Some thinner than the side of your hand, poured from 25 feet, 72-foot wide pours in fiberglass form liners. Anything is possible. Look at that detail. This is all green concrete. None of this has been pointed up, by the way. So now, a project I'm very proud of in Florida, right, in Clearwater, Florida. This is for the city. City did not have a lot of money. They had a very limited budget, and they said, Stephen, we don't have a lot of money, but we really want to show this is really the beginning of the water, sand, play, and we would speak to the city. What can you do? So what we did is we designed a design that I think there was 4 form liners of shells, 3 form liners of water, but did you notice that? Doesn't it look organic? Doesn't it look natural? Does it look like a stamped pattern? No. It looks, because each one of these form liners can be rotated. Each one of them can be reconfigured to over and over and over again. They're the same form liners. It's how it's designed. And if it's designed when you all are designing it, that's where the economy comes in, because it's designed within the functionality and safety of the bridge. It's not an afterthought. It starts at the community outreach. It starts actually at the conversation that precedes that with the client. Natural means and methods. There's nothing unique about this. You got your forms. You got your beams, and you put your form liners in. You attach it. You erect it. You put it up against the wall. You block out the sides. You have your reinforcement. You pour from the top. But when you strip it, instead of it being, I don't know, a brick or fractured fin, now you have flying leaves. Now you have a working 25-foot sundial. Now you got quotations about the passage of time. I mean, anything. This is the state of Florida. There's so much to say about this state. It amazes me, because I've been coming here for my whole life. And there's so much that could be represented so easily, timelessly. And it's so easy to do. The integration of this is as simple as this to that. Because what is it? Nobody's getting pretty pictures, by the way. You know, the contractors, we do the specifications, we do all the plan sheets, the details, the sections of views, and all of that. But they're just getting lines, words, and numbers, just like everything else. Same means and methods. This is to celebrate their 100th anniversary of the Right Beef Flyer. This is now an icon. A lot of these things are all award-winning projects, and if you, I put on that back table or 3D glasses, like a business card you can take with you. All of these things are all over the country. But one more thing about modularity, sound barriers. To the left is what you all have in a lot of places now, right? You have a fractured fin, you have a silhouette pushed into it. Think about what that is now. You are paying for that much concrete, every one of those strips, for miles. Think about the cost to make that impression. Versus you start at the 0 point, which we call the background, and you can make the most extraordinary, beautiful, detailed version of whatever you wanted to do here at a fraction of the cost. Right there is cost savings, saying the same thing. You want to talk about the local bird, but in fact done 2 different ways, and the difference in cost is extraordinary. So what I'm here to just complete this session about is talking about modularity. Because with modularity, you can take a configuration of one thing, and if you just look at it differently, you can then reconfigure it and create something else. We have a project that you'll see here, sound barriers of a forest and water and birds and clouds. And there's so many combinations and permutations of this. You could take the tree trunks out, drop the canopy down, now you have bushes. Take the clouds out and put birds flying. I mean, you can take one end of the forest and the other end of the forest and make an island. And it just goes, it's endless. Now, if you had an inventory of designs like this, and you had great blue herons, and you had the different flora and fauna of Florida in your inventory, then you can mix them all up. This is, I think, the best example of modularity and economics, because this is something all of you are thinking about right now, is the economy of this, and is it going to slow your project down? It will not slow your project down. Great, that Big Rock project I talked about. At the very end of the project, they said, CDR, oh my God, we've totally forgot. We have 250,000 square feet of MSC wall, ramp walls, we need to cover. We've run out of money. 250,000 square feet of ramp walls, MSC walls. I said, can you afford 5 liners? And they said, yeah. I said, then what's your tree? What's your state tree? They said, the loblolly pine. I said, okay, this is what I can do for you. And I showed them this. So that asymmetrical looking forest is made up of 5 liners only. That's that one. Remember, I can rotate them. That one. See? Like that. Right? It doesn't look like that at first blush, does it? But then you take that, look at the detail. Over miles and miles and miles and miles of ramps, and all of them look different because you can do it any way you want with 5 patterns, 5 liners. And of course, urban environments, that can go on forever. I mean, we use a material called Faux Terra, which is, it's full color structural concrete. It's poured, full color structural concrete, 7,000 PSI. So your turnpike or the toll booths that have that concrete sign that says sun pass, but it's monochromatic. I understand why it's monochromatic, because if you painted it, the UVs would just bleach it out. But remember, concrete you can do anything with. So it could be in full color. You can cast it in full color. This right here is in National Harbor outside of Washington, D.C. It just looks like this giant painting. But if you look very closely, this looks like Washington, D.C. as seen under a magnifying glass. It's a story about the discovery of the headwaters of the Potomac. The entire thing is made out of pea gravel, controlled certain color, recycled glass, polymer, superplasticizer, cement, water, pigment, oxide pigments, and that's it. We've been using this for 30 years, completely color fast. But what you really saw, what this really is, it's a game. It's a pedestrian facility, it's a game. There's 100 things like the old highlighter magazines. You remember as a kid? Well, maybe some of you aren't as old as I am, but anyway, they had pictures where things hidden in the pictures, you had to find them. Well, that's what this is. It's a game about the history of this area. And the clues are engraved on the benches. And nobody tells you though. But when you figure it out, the game is on and everybody's running around and they are engaged. But look at that, hairline registration, gradations across color fields. You hit it with a hammer, color goes all the way down the reinforcement. Plazas, sidewalks, sides of buildings, precast structures for turnpike, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you. But the whole idea was, how this works is you're just walking down the sidewalk and the brick edging starts to tell you a story. It tells you a poem, a historic fact, pedestrian facility, remember? And it's engaging you, and you read it, you're walking, and then all of a sudden you get to an icon that speaks to what that story is about, or the conclusion. And all this is structural concrete. Benches, anything. So this is these last couple slides. Again, pedestrian facilities. This is a transition in Tucson, Arizona. Excuse me. Goes from a hike-bike path on one side to the city street on the other. So we took a Native American basket design, and we broke it apart to create this beautiful effect, which is part of a much bigger job. But this is what it looks like during the day, what it looks like at night. Changes color with LED lights. And so, just in closing, no matter who does this for you, it's in time, it's in budget. It has to be low maintenance. It has to be safe. All those things are the prerequisite. And after that, promote your community involvement, quality of life, sense of place. Thank you.